Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. How many of you have been to one of our previous 2 sessions already?
Wonderful.
And how many is the first session you've been to? All right, well, welcome. Glad to have you. Welcome to our health seminar and welcome to the Carmichael Seventh Adventist Church. If you haven't been here before, aside from focusing on people's health and a long list of lifestyle things, we are a Seventh Adventist church, and if you're looking for a home church, a friendly church who's going to welcome you and love you, I think you'd be happy here. So come and join us. We have worship on Sabbath on Saturday mornings. Bible studies start around, some start at 9:30, some start at 10, and then our worship services at 11. Multi-generational, multicultural. It's a wonderful place. We think you'd come closer to God here. We are so thrilled to be working with Coach Ruben. For those of you who don't know, Ruben is a certified lifestyle medicine practitioner. Did I say that correctly?
It's close enough.
I was close. I was this close. I've known Ruben for years. He's made a huge impact, at least on a lot of people that I know, and my family specifically, with helping to turn health around. And we've seen it. We've seen the benefits of his work and as his instruction to really turn health around. So even got me down from a high of overall about 60, 70 pounds, and much better, much more energy. So thank you, Ruben, for tonight. And make sure everybody has filled in the yellow sheet if you haven't yet, and we'll turn the time over to Ruben.
Okay. Thank you, Bobby. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. All right. So we're going to have a wonderful evening together because this is going to be an important topic for each and every one of you. This topic touches not only your life, but it touches the lives of everybody in your circle. How many of you know someone who has high blood pressure, is on cholesterol medication, suffers from sleep apnea, is overweight, has high stress? Okay, because all of those are risk factors for a heart attack. All of them. Every single one of them. So this is a very important talk. This touches everybody's lives, and it's touched mine deeply. My eldest son had his first heart attack at the age of 31. He had his second heart attack at the age of 34. He is currently 38. And everything that I'm going to share with you tonight, I have shared with him to make a profound difference in the quality of his life. He is a bright, brilliant, energetic, amazing, loving, kind, compassionate human being. He brought his rescued dog, Lola, back to life. And it's my passion and my commitment that he live a long, thriving, healthy, happy life. That's what he wants. So this is very personal for me. And I'm sure it's very personal for a lot of you. So tonight is meaningful. And I want to share with you some incredible information. I only have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. Hold your questions to the end, and I'll answer every question. And I will not go home until I answer every single person's questions, okay? That's my commitment to all of you. The reason I'm here is not to make money. I don't have any gimmicks. I don't have any schemes. I don't have anything up my sleeves, as you can tell. Okay? I am passionate about eliminating chronic disease from the face of the planet. I've been practicing lifestyle medicine since my first year of medical school in 1982-83. This is what I'm passionate about, and I'm committed to empowering every single person to live a thriving, healthy, happy life. Who wants to join me? Okay, all right, let's do it. Let's do it. So lots to cover tonight. Briefly, for those of you who have never met me before, my background, I did my undergraduate training at California Lutheran University. beautiful private school down in Thousand Oaks. I did a couple of years of work in a hospital, and one event happened to me, and I'll send you the video in the follow-up email. I did an autopsy on a woman who was a Seventh-day Adventist with internal organs as pristine and as flawless as a newborn. That changed my life. I'm clear that it was a gift from God, because I got to see somebody who beat the odds with a genetic defect. She had a perforation through the chambers of her heart called a ventral septal defect, and she beat the odds by over 50 years. She should have died in her 20s. She was in her 70s. It was extraordinary. So then off I went to medical school at UC Davis School of Medicine. That's what brought me up here to Northern California. And I was passionate about learning about the connection between lifestyle and longevity. And my advisor advised me to do research, to enter into the MD PhD program. So I started to do my research. And my findings were so interesting. He said, Ruben, you're onto something, but we don't have the resources here for you. So maybe you should go to the School of Public Health and see where that leads you, and you have the option to come back and finish your MD if you want. So then off I went to UCLA and the School of Public Health, and I specialized in behavioral sciences, which is an advanced psychology degree, and health promotion. What a concept, right? Promoting health. There was no classes in medical school on promoting health, just so you know. So I loved my program at UCLA, and after I got done, I realized I was passionate about promoting health and preventing disease, and I was no longer interested in treating disease with pharmaceutical drugs or surgical procedures. Now, medicine has its place. Traditional medicine has its place. Don't get me wrong. If you're traumatized in an accident for some reason, you need a trauma surgeon to help you. You need that. You need an orthopedic surgeon. You need somebody to help you with that. That's important. It really is. So there's a place for it. But when it comes to chronic disease, it doesn't work so well. And the track record is really abysmal. So I continued doing my research on my own after I finished. In 1988, I finished my master's in public health. And then 30 years later, I found my tribe. I found a whole new specialty of the American Medical Association, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And I had never known about this. And I'll tell you more about it later. But in October 2018, I became one of the first board-certified lifestyle medicine professionals and practitioners in the world. And I couldn't be more proud. My certificate has the number 00081. My colleague just got board certified in lifestyle medicine. Her number is 6,600 plus. So it's really extraordinary. I'm also a member of the Institute of Coaching out of Harvard. Many of us in lifestyle medicine are. And if you Google my name, yes, I did write these 3 books in the world of swimming. I've been a professional swimming coach for well over 45 years. And this book, now the swimming drill book, is now the best swimming drill book in the entire world. And it's sold 553 copies. But it's been translated to 5 other languages. I'm very proud of it. And I wrote 2 books on health. This one was published back in 2011. And this is the mock-up of the book that is due to be out June, July this year, How to Fully Live. I couldn't be more proud and excited about that. And just wait for that. I get to live into this quote that Thomas Edison said well over 100 years ago, that the doctor of the future will give no medicine, none whatsoever, but will instruct his patient in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. Doesn't that make sense? Wouldn't that be better? Instead of, I only got 15 minutes. What are your major symptoms, signs? Okay, here's a prescription, go. That's not medicine. That's not practicing medicine. So just to let you know, again, I have no conflicts of interest whatsoever. I have no products to sell you like Dr. Gundry. I am not going there. All right? Nothing. I have nothing to sell you whatsoever. I believe that Virgil was correct well over 2,000 years ago, and he said that the greatest wealth that any of us can have truly is our health. It really is. Aristotle added to this. Aristotle said a person who has their health has 1,000 wishes. A person who does not have their health has but only one wish. So the predicament that we get into here in these United States, in this Western world that we live in, is that so many people displace the importance of their health, don't they? They focus more on making money, getting things done. I got too much on my plate. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to cook healthy food. I don't have time to prepare food. I don't have time. And they're focused on making money. And that's the world that we live in today. As the Dalai Lama was asked about what perplexed him most about humanity, and he said that man sacrifices his health in order to make money. And then he sacrifices money in a desperate attempt to try to recuperate his health. And then he is so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present. The result being that he does not live in the present or the future. He lives as if he is never going to die and then dies, having never really lived. And sobering. It's so sobering, and it's true. I've seen it far too many times. One of my clients, a high-powered law firm here in Sacramento, one of their attorneys absolutely was so amazing, brilliant, capable, successful in every stretch of the word. He personally was responsible for well over $1.5 million of revenue every single year. At the age of 42, first symptom of a heart attack, he died. 40 to 50% of all heart attacks, the first symptom is sudden death. How do you replace somebody at the age of 42 who's that valuable? You can't do that. You can't replace that. So not only do we need to learn new things about how to actually live a thriving, healthy, happy life, but as one of my favorite teachers of all time, who taught me long ago in a galaxy far away, you must unlearn what you have learned. So the key here to consider, my friends, is that we all have beliefs that we have gotten conditioned to believe. All of us. We're all conditioned. And so we need to understand that those conditioned beliefs get in the way. And we need to unlearn those conditioned beliefs. It used to be thought that the world was flat. Did you know that? If you lived in Italy over 1,000 years ago, and if you thought that the world was spherical like Galileo did, what did they do to Galileo? They imprisoned him. They thought he was absolutely wacko. So the thing is, our beliefs get in the way. Our attitudes and mind get in the way. So we have to unlearn. So here's what we're going to cover today. I'm going to go over some statistics for you, just briefly. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of stats, but some important stats. Then we're going to talk about 3 important aspects here. What is the cause of heart disease? What are the culprits? And what are the cures? Everybody with me on that? And then I'm going to talk about how do we actually create a successful lifestyle change to sustain it. Because information that I give you tonight will not matter one bit if you don't use it. So there's a Buddhist phrase, to know and not to use is not yet to know. So we have to apply the knowledge that we gain. So it's real important. So how many of you are committed to having the rest of your life be the best of your life? All right, we're going to cover that at the very end. All right, so now here's some stats. Very shocking, recent statistic. This came out Heart Association's journals circulation in July of 2022. And by the way, lifestyle medicine is completely evidence-based. So everything that I'm going to share with you is all backed by research, every bit of it. So 4 out of 5 Americans today are classified as having suboptimal heart health. Suboptimal. Only 1 in 5 has optimal heart health. That's absolutely depressing. How many of you did 45 minutes of cardiovascular exercise this morning? Okay, you see how few hands are up? Okay, so that's the thing. We've got to be able to have a lot of cardiovascular activity. So it's really important that we understand this. Heart disease in the United States, as I said before, 40 to 50% of all first heart attacks result in sudden death. 1 person dies every 36 seconds. Over 600,000 people die. That's 1 out of 4 deaths. That's 25% of the deaths here in the United States every single year. And it's expensive. It's very, very expensive. In addition, 20% of heart attacks are what we call silent heart attacks. People don't even know that it's happening. 18.2 million age 20 and older have coronary artery disease. We see this even in the autopsies. So number 1 leading cause of death for men and women in the United States. 647 and growing. It's actually grown. 80% of these cases are preventable. That's the thing. It's all, and I mean, Dr. Glover would actually tell me every one of these is preventable. So I believe it's definitely preventable. Recent stats from the CDC as of 2022. Heart disease approaching 700,000 deaths. So it's really climbed even more. There is a leading cause of death that the CDC does not report. But Johns Hopkins did the research to show that the 3rd leading cause of death is, what do you guess? Any guesses? Nerves? No. Over medication, you're warm. The 3rd leading cause of death is medical error. Medical error. Now, I was a hospital administrator for Kaiser in South Sacramento for several years. One of my departments was risk management. Every month, we had a stack of patient files where there was medical error, and we needed to review them for risk of litigation. All the time. It happens all the time. So here's the reality. The stats on chronic disease, it used to be that we had 40% of the population. Now, what we see as of 2020, 60% of the American population has chronic disease. Notice the difference, because back here in 1940, it was only, this is before World War II, it was 7.5%. Wow. That's an astronomical increase. What keeps us sick? Why is this occurring? One of my good friends, Dr. Stephen Lome, L-O-M-E, he's a cardiologist in Indiana. He was at Rush University for many years. He's also a board-certified cardiologist in lifestyle medicine. He says there's 5 major factors that keep us as Americans sick, keep us contributing to chronic disease. 1 is stress. Absolutely. And here's what happens. When we're in the state of stress, our brain is wired. It's intentional, and it's beautifully designed. But here's what happens. When we're in the state of stress, we're wired to seek out, what do you think? Sugar is 1. Fat is 2. Salt is 3. Absolutely correct. Fat, salt, and sugar, which you can find where? Everywhere. I call them survival food stations, like Wendy's, McDonald's, Carl's Jr., Denny's, you name it, it's all loaded with fat, salt, and sugar. They pay their scientists to make sure that there's the correct ratio of fat, salt, and sugar, so that the moment you eat them, your brain says, oh, you're still in a famine. Come back for more. This is a major contributing factor because that's the food industry. That's what it does. It keeps us sick. Another thing that keeps us sick, contributes to our sickness is our family pattern of behaviors. It's not genetics. A lot of people think it's just genetics. No. It's what you learn from being in your family, of how you eat and how you live. And then another factor that keeps us sick is our government. How many of you discovered over the time of COVID that our government is not focused on health? We're the only industrialized country without universal health care, without it. And then another thing that keeps us sick is the medical industry itself. And this is really important to understand. When I was in medical school at UC Davis, we had the most number of hours of nutrition training in the entire United States. Guess how many hours? 10. 1 hour a week for a 10-week quarter. That was it. The instructor was seriously overweight and unhealthy. They gave us the book for nutrition. We did not have to buy it. All the other classes we had to spend $150, $200, $250 for a textbook. No, they gave us the textbook for nutrition. Could somebody make room for them to be able to sit down, please? Come on over. Why don't you move over and then let them come on in and sit down, if you would, please. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, come on in. You got some room over here. Okay, very good. So they gave us the textbook for nutrition. I still have it at home. I forgot to bring it today. I'll bring it next time. It's an 8.5 by 11 hardback book. Brown cover. White lettering. And by the way, it's beautiful pages. 100 pages, all color, glossy. Absolutely amazing. At the top of the book, it says nutrition. At the bottom of the cover, it says Upjohn. What is Upjohn? It's a pharmaceutical company. So connect the dots with me, if you will, for a moment. Consider that every single medical student in the entire United States for decades has been getting their information about nutrition from a pharmaceutical company. Any conflict of interest? Perhaps. Just maybe. These things keep us sick. And it costs us dearly. It costs us. So we have data on this. The American Journal of Managed Care shows that the average cost per patient with established cardiovascular disease was nearly $19,000 per person per year. Wow. And the cost of a heart attack exceeded $100,000 per person. That was back in 2010. Do you think it's more expensive now? Absolutely. When it comes to addressing chronic disease, Dr. Dean Ornish talks about how traditional medicine has really fallen short. It's sort of like a scenario where two doctors walk into a kitchen and they notice that there's water on the floor. And their first response is to grab a couple of mops. And they start mopping and mopping and mopping, and they put the water in the bucket, and they mop, and they put the water in the bucket, they mop, they put the water in the bucket, never once stopping to think, where's the water coming from? Oh, there's a sink that's got a plugged drain and the water faucet's still on. Can somebody please turn off the faucet? Lifestyle medicine is about being able to understand the cause, not treat the symptoms. There's a big difference in the mindset. So that's what we do. So instead of doing this, several really powerful, wonderful, brilliant luminaries decided to take a radical different approach. Einstein said it well, that the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. So we need to be able to think in a different way. I invite you to read this wonderful book by one of my favorite psychologists, Adam Grant. It's called Think Again. Think Again. It has nothing to do with health directly, but it has everything to do with your mindset. And I got news for you. Your mindset has everything to do with your health. So it all starts here. Very powerful book. These luminaries, who I'm going to introduce you to right now, they all got together back in 2004. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, I'll introduce you to him later. Dr. Michael Greger, Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. T. Colin Campbell, Dr. Neil Barnard, Dr. John McDougall, and many others. I know all of these personally. They all got together and decided to create an entirely new specialty of the American Medical Association, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, back in 2004. I didn't know this at the time. There was only a handful of them back then. And it's grown, and it's grown, and today it is absolutely the fastest growing specialty of the American Medical Association. Yes. In fact, we're making such headway that the new president of the American Medical Association and 3 board members of the American Medical Association are board certified in lifestyle medicine. Yes, it's awesome. So lifestyle medicine, in case you don't know, is the use of evidence-based lifestyle therapeutic intervention, including a whole food, plant predominant eating pattern, regular physical activity, restorative sleep, stress management, avoidance of risky substances, and positive social connection, and a whole bunch of other things. As a primary modality, we say do this first. Delivered by clinicians trained and certified in this specialty to prevent, treat, and often reverse chronic disease. Doesn't that make sense? It's awesome. And a lot of this research is based on what we've learned from the blue zones. So it's a lot of it there. So I focus on 8 major areas, all of these. So those I add 2 areas, hydration and happiness. I'm actually on the committee for happiness with the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Can you figure why? So it's awesome to be part of that. Lifestyle medicine is a completely different way of thinking. It's a completely different paradigm. Dr. Wayne Dysinger, one of the founders, he said that lifestyle medicine is the foundation of healthcare for the future because 80% of healthcare right now is chronic disease. And 80% of chronic disease is driven by lifestyle, 20% from genetics, but 80% from lifestyle. So if the disease is caused predominantly by lifestyle, the foundation ought to be a lifestyle treatment. Doesn't that make sense? Absolutely, it does. Dr. Dean Ornish, another one of the luminaries in this, he says the simple choices that we make in our lifestyle can be as powerful as drugs and surgery. And in fact, what we show that they often are, and even better. Even better. We get better results. It's extraordinary. And how many of you would like to feel younger, look younger, and be younger in your physiology? How many of you would like to be able to do that? The good news is we've shown, even if you're 50 years old and you now just start taking better care of yourself, instead of living only to 79 if you're a woman and 75 and a half if you're a man, you could enjoy an average life expectancy of 93 if you're a woman and 87 and a half if you're a man. That's incredible. That's starting late in the game. You can still improve dramatically. So it's never too late. So there's the stats. Now let's talk about the cause. What is the cause of cardiovascular disease? What is the cause? So to understand this, we need to first understand a little bit about the anatomy and physiology. So here is a picture of the cardiovascular system, brief, just little crude but simple drawing. Now, this whole system is what we call a closed loop fluid system. How many of you are familiar with hydraulics at all? Anybody? Okay, so you understand what happens when you have a closed loop with the fluid in there and you increase the pressure. Now you're able to elevate your entire car. It's amazing what you can do. Now, everybody take your hand like this, put your index finger in there, and then make a fist around it. Now give it just a modest amount of pressure. Just squeeze it just a little bit. And now give it a little pulse. So pulse and relax, pulse and relax, pulse and relax, pulse and relax. All right, that's what your heart is doing. Okay, all the time. All the time it's doing that. Now, I want you to squeeze it about 10% harder. 10% harder. Squeeze it harder, harder. Keep it going. Keep it going. Don't let up. Now squeeze 20% harder. Okay, so harder still. Squeeze and relax, squeeze and relax, squeeze and relax, but it's 20% harder. Now squeeze 50% harder. So you're really squeezing hard now. Squeezing hard. It's harder, harder. Is that hand getting a little bit tired now? You notice that? Okay, now squeeze 100% harder. Really squeeze hard. Hard, hard. Squeeze it. Squeeze hard. Squeeze it. Squeeze and relax. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. That's what's happening to your heart when your blood pressure goes up. Your heart is a muscle. It's a pump. It's not passive. So when your blood pressure is going up, that's a sign that your heart has to now work harder and being able to pump 5 to 6 liters of blood through your entire body. And being able to do that. So it has to work harder, much, much harder. When your heart pumps, it has to be able to get the blood all the way through so that it can actually return back to the heart. So there needs to be sufficient pressure. So when you get your blood pressure taken, you have 2 numbers. The first number is what we call the systolic, the upper number. That's when it pumps hard. That's the highest pressure. But then the second number is what we call the diastolic, which is the balance of the pressure that allows it to continue to flow. How many of you check your blood pressure regularly, at least once a week? Not enough hands up, okay? So you want to be able to do that. Blood pressure is not the cause of heart disease. It's an indicator light. So when we see blood pressure going up, it's telling us that there's inflammation going on in your blood vessel walls, and it's causing constriction, making it harder for the blood to go through. Therefore, your pump has to work harder. Giving you medications does not address the cause. Everybody with me? It just makes it a little bit better so your heart doesn't work harder, but it's not addressing the cause at all. So anytime you have elevated blood pressure, I heard many people come to me, oh, it's under control. I'm on medications. I'm on lisinopril. No, you're only fooling yourself, and every doctor is fooling you. They know better. That's not going to address the cause. The American Heart Association, American Stroke Association actually published these results. You need to know these numbers. You need to know these numbers. So normal blood pressure is less than 120 for the systolic and less than 80 for the diastolic. Anything else means that pump of yours is working harder. And there's a reason for that.
Is there any allowance for age?
No. No. No, sorry, Mary, you're not off the hook. There used to be, not anymore. We know better. So when your blood pressure goes up, that is no different than the check engine light in your car going off. How many of you ignore the check engine light when it goes on in your car? Anybody here ignore it? Don't do that. Okay, you get to the mechanic as soon as possible and do a diagnosis. Find out what's really going on. So blood pressure is a check engine light. By the way, you can go to Walgreens and you can get this. I recommend this to everybody because it's easy to do. It's a wrist monitor. I have one at home. I check my blood pressure all the time, and you can get this for under $75. I'm going to send you the information in the follow-up email. So make sure you check your blood pressure on a regular basis. Now, when I was in medical school, actually before I went to medical school, when I did autopsies, when I was doing autopsies, I had a very interesting experience because Dr. Glover, the senior pathologist, was training me to be a diener back then as a backup in case I didn't get to medical school. So he was teaching me how to do dissections of a person who had died. So he's to set up the whole autopsy. So I remember one day I was dissecting an aorta where there was an aneurysm. And as I was dissecting it, it sounded like this. I said, Dr. Glover, what's that? And he says, oh, those are your cheeseburgers there. He knew. So I stopped eating cheeseburgers. And then I was dissecting a carotid artery going up into the brain. I said, Dr. Glover, what's that? He said, oh, those are your hot dogs there. And I stopped eating hot dogs. So when the artery is diseased, what it does, when there's inflammation in the artery, the body has a preservation method of being able to heal it or put a Band-Aid on it. And it uses cholesterol as a Band-Aid to put a patch over the inflammation. Now, when I was in medical school, I was taught that this plaque was the cause of heart attacks. I was taught that. Because what we could see in some people, and back then especially, we would see that this is a healthy artery, and this is the opening. It doesn't show any blood in there, but this is what it would look like without the blood. This is a diseased artery. And this is how that opening has been reduced to that little hole there. This is what it was in a healthy state. Now, here's what I want you to see really carefully. The wall of this healthy artery, this section here, is the muscle, smooth muscle. The smooth muscle is what allows an artery to expand and to contract. It gives it the flexibility that it needs. When that blood gets pumped into the artery, it has to be able to expand and contract a little bit. That's a healthy artery. And a diseased artery, notice what we've got. This muscle has been reduced to almost nothing. And the rest of the space is filled in with cholesterol and foam cells and all kinds of other things. And it's very hard. Now, when I was in medical school, we looked at these coronary arteries as the problem for heart attacks because they would have plaque. People would develop plaque, especially in the left anterior descending coronary artery. How many of you have heard of that one? Sometimes called the widowmaker. Okay, so those are the important arteries. And so we would see that, oh, there's cholesterol buildup in this artery, and then sometimes what happens, it gets to the stage where it breaks, and then we get a clot, and then we have a heart attack. For the longest time, we believed that was the cause of heart attacks. But it turns out that's not necessarily the case. So for the longest time, I learned when I was in medical school that cholesterol was a problem. So there was a study that got started in 1948 called the Framingham Study. And the Framingham Study looked at this group of people in Massachusetts, and it was comparing them to people who had basically no history of heart attack in different parts of the world, rural Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And what they showed was that people in some areas of the planet had cholesterol levels of less than 150 and had no history of heart attacks whatsoever. They were usually in the range of 125 to 140. Very interesting. In the Framingham study, what they did is they looked at people over the course of quite a few years, 1948 to 1974, so almost 30 years. And here's what they found. One group had no coronary artery disease. That's this blue line. But the other group had coronary artery disease. That's the red line. So this is measuring cholesterol levels from below 150 to over 300. But notice that the two graphs, the two curves overlap quite a bit, don't they? So it's not a clear signal that cholesterol is the problem. It's not. But based on this data, what they said is that, well, clearly people below 150 have basically no heart attacks, and clearly people over 300 are absolutely have heart attacks. But we have to have some kind of cutoff. So they figured out that if there was a 20% risk for a heart attack, then this was good enough. So starting then, this is what I got taught in medical school back then. If a person had a cholesterol level of less than 200, we said, you're good, you're fine. But really, you still have a 20% risk. Interesting. So it was considered an agreeable level of risk. That's what was determined, but it's still not a clear indicator. What we show from the research is this, that a person who maintains a blood cholesterol under 150 for a lifetime will not develop coronary artery disease even if he or she smokes, has a family history of coronary artery disease, suffers from hypertension, and is obese. Isn't that interesting? Wow. Now, what we look at in terms of cholesterol as a risk, there's several different carriers of cholesterol. How many of you have heard of LDL and HDL? How many of you have heard of that? How many of you know your numbers? You know your numbers. Okay, very good. So one of the cholesterol carriers is LDL cholesterol, which stands for low density lipoprotein. It's not cholesterol, it's a carrier of cholesterol. And I use this because it's a dump truck. If there is inflammation in the artery lining, this LDL cholesterol is a dump truck. It's going to dump cholesterol on that area of inflammation as a patch, as a Band-Aid, to try to heal it up and try to make it smooth. Cholesterol is a waxy substance. It's a lot like beeswax that is hardened. How many of you have ever tried to peel off that beeswax? Right? That's what cholesterol feels like. It's just like that. So that's what LDL will do. Now, what we've shown in the research is that an indicator for heart disease will be LDL. It's an indicator, it's not the cause. If the LDL cholesterol is high, then we'll have elevated risk. If it's below 70 down to 40, that's going to be the least amount of risk. So there's actually a linear relationship. I like to see people around 70 or less, and that's what we try to see in lifestyle medicine. We want to see a low level of LDL cholesterol. This is from the publication of Circulation. Now, recently, we've also seen a new carrier come on the scene called lipoprotein little a. How many of you have heard of that? How many of you have never heard of LP little a before? Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to LP little a. So they discovered this particular little cholesterol carrier, LP little a, otherwise known as lipoprotein little a. And it's similar to LDL. However, what's interesting about this is actually something that we've been able to associate a genetic risk. There is a gene for producing this particular molecule. So lipoprotein little a, genetic studies in the 1990s found that some people had different expressions of the LPA gene, which could increase their risk for having elevated lipoprotein little a levels. Today, about 20 to 30% of the people worldwide are estimated to have elevated levels of LP little a, which generally start from about 30 to 50 milligrams per deciliter as far as the blood level. My son's level of LP little a is 175. And it's from, unfortunately, his mother's side of the family, not mine. I'm sorry, Aaron, but I didn't know. So Dr. Tsimakis, he says that LP little a is likely the leading inherited risk for cardiovascular disease. It's more inheritable than hypertension, diabetes, and obesity. However, even if the level is elevated, it doesn't mean you're going to have an event. It just puts you at higher risk. So in lifestyle medicine, what we say is genetics loads the gun. But lifestyle pulls the trigger. So just because you have the genetic risk factor for it doesn't mean it's absolutely going to happen. So we can mitigate that by changing your lifestyle.
Is this checked for in a typical blood panel when you get?
No, I'm going to give you a whole list later. Okay. Now, another carrier is high-density lipoprotein. So high-density lipoprotein, sometimes referred to as the good cholesterol, and it is the garbage truck. Now, what we see is that HDL can go up, usually with exercise and vitamin C-rich foods, and it will pick up the cholesterol that is in the bloodstream as you're getting healthier. It'll pick up that excess cholesterol. However, far too many people put too much importance on the HDL. You're more concerned, you should be more concerned about your LDL and the lipoprotein little a. That's what you should be more concerned about. HDL will vary. So it's not the cause. Again, this is just an indicator. Another indicator for heart disease is the canary in the coal mine. Now, why did they have canaries in the coal mines? Why did they bring canaries down into the coal mines? Why did they do that?
They would smell the gas first and be affected and die.
And they,
One of the miners.
exactly. So what would the miners notice? They stop singing. If the canary's not singing, it's time to get out. Okay, so the canary in the coal mine when it comes to heart disease is erectile dysfunction. And this is true for men, and it's also true for women. All right, because the sexual organs have the highest concentration of endothelial cells. The United States ranks number 1 in erectile dysfunction. 40% of the men over 40, 50% of the men over 50, 60% of the men over the age of 60. Having erectile dysfunction puts a person at a 500% elevated risk for having a cardiac episode. That's significant. That's significant. So that's a major indicator. Erectile dysfunction, ED equals early death. So I've given you some indicators, but they're not the cause. What's the cause? To understand the real cause of any chronic disease, we have to understand the central nervous system. Our body is wired, and our electrical system is the brain's central nervous system. So one of the things that I learned is that the first organ system of the body to become differentiated and operational in the embryo is the central nervous system. It's the electrical system, and it has 2 currents. You have a positive current, which is referred to as the parasympathetic state, or the parasympathetic wiring, and you have a negative current, which is referred to as the sympathetic state. How it works is this. Our body is designed to function in either the parasympathetic state or the sympathetic state at any given moment. We can go back and forth between the two, but how it works is that we're either in the parasympathetic state or we are in the sympathetic state, and that's how it works. That's it. I didn't set up the design. If you have issues with the design, please take it up with the designer, not with me. Okay? I'm just the messenger. Now, here's what we have to understand. The root cause of all chronic disease is being in the sympathetic state. Far too much, far too often, far too long. When we are in the sympathetic state, the body is in the state of survival and it's reacting to stress of any kind: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual stress. Physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual stress. Physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual stress. And then it will be in that state, and it's going to operate at a very primal level. Fight, flight, freeze, and fold, we know, we recognize that. But even as subtle as a perceived threat is enough to trigger us and put us in the sympathetic state. We wake up in the morning and think, oh no, I have to deal with George this morning, oh God. Boom, you're in the sympathetic state. So the common denominator of all chronic disease is being in the state of dis-ease. Far too much, far too often, and far too long. That's common for any chronic disease, whether it's autoimmune disorders, rheumatoid arthritis, whether it's osteoporosis, whether it's cancer, whether it's diabetes, it doesn't matter. It's all the same process. This is at the root of it all. When we're in that state, what we start to see is a whole cascade of biochemicals and neurotransmitters in every response in the body. And one of the most profound things that we see as a result of being in the state of dis-ease, far too much, far too often, far too long, is chronic inflammation. And when we get to chronic inflammation, all kinds of things start to break down. And then we can add fuel to the fire with saturated fats, because saturated fats will destroy the healthy microbiome in our gut. It will absolutely destroy our immune response and cause tissue damage and hemorrhage. And arachidonic acid, which is omega-9 and omega-6 fatty acids, and cause inflammatory immune mediators and prostaglandins and leukotrienes. They cause damage. What we've learned, especially in the last 25 years, is that this very, very delicate layer of endothelial cells that line the arteries, it's 1 cell thick in the artery wall. 1 cell thick. If you were to peel it off, it would be so thin you could see right through it. Yet these endothelial cells are so important to the health and vitality of these arteries. They're the same kind of cells you have in your mouth. Those are endothelial cells. Now, what does inflammation feel like? Most of us don't know what it feels like in the arteries. There's no nerve endings. How many of you have bitten your cheek before? And then a minute later, you did it again. What's up with that? So, and then what happens, right? You're putting your tongue up against that, right? And it's tender, and it's sore. It's inflamed. That's inflammation. When you bite your cheek, you feel it. We have all these nerve endings here. You feel it. But in your artery walls, you don't feel it. There are no nerve endings whatsoever. So what happens is that you get a pocket of inflammation. And I'm going to talk about what causes this in a minute. You get a pocket of inflammation, what we've seen, because this 1 cell layer thickness of endothelial cells is so delicate. But the blood's always flowing. And a pocket of inflammation, that covering of endothelial cells can rip and tear. It can start to tear, and then it starts to rip open, and you start to get the formation of a clot. And then it flips all the way open. And now you've got this clot. And that leads to a heart attack in 80% of the cases. 80%. We thought it was all the cholesterol plaques. No, that's a small percentage. Now, what are the culprits? What contributes to this? This is the cause. So what are the culprits? I've got a whole bunch of them. Get ready. So I've got good news, then bad news, and good news, then bad news, and good news. So I've got bad news, and now now we're going to do bad news again. So here's some bad news, okay? So causes of inflammation, long list. Long list. Number 1 at the top of the list is stress. Absolutely. Absolutely stress. Dehydration, being sedentary, lack of sleep, meat, dairy, and eggs, processed meats, fried foods, oils, sodas, alcohol, tobacco, caffeine, fast foods, and refined sugars. All of them contribute to inflammation. All of them. All of them. So you want to, when you get the email, you want to print this slide out and put it on your refrigerator. To remind you, okay? To remind you what causes inflammation. Now, a fact from the CDC, just published recently. Only 1 in 10 adults get enough fruits and veggies. That's deplorable. We have data on this. We show something called the phytochemical index. So the average annual food expenditures. So 1998, 19.76% of the food that we bought were fruits and vegetables. In 2006, it was 17.61%. I'm waiting for the new data to come out. I've read it. It's gone down even more. It's not good. Here's a graphic showing from the CDC as well. Americans have only 12% plant food in their diet. 12%. Remember that number, 12% plant food in their diet, 25% animal food, and here's the major culprit, 63% from processed foods. 63% from processed foods. I've spoken all over the country for CEOs and executives. I have met people that they only eat at McDonald's. That's the only place they eat. So they're eating 100% processed foods. Now, what is this problem? What's causing it? So there's many layers to it. One of the aspects is this. I want you to take a look at this. So back in 2004, we had some research done at Yale University. They developed a new technology to look inside of cells. And they were able to trace everything going in and everything going out. Now, they took diabetics as their test group, and they looked inside the cells of diabetics, tracing everything going in and out, and what they found shocked them. It shocked them. What they found were all of these pools of intramyocellular lipid, which is a fancy word for fat. Here's why this is shocking. A muscle cell is typically 90% water. Fat is oil. My friends, do oil and water mix? No, they don't. You can do this at home. You can take a glass and you can pour some water in and pour some of the last of the olive oil that you will ever use. And where will the olive oil go? It will float to the top. It'll form an oil slick. It'll form that slick. Now, what happens out in the ocean when there's an oil slick? It goes to the top. What happens to the marine life underneath? It suffocates and dies. And here's what's happening that most of us don't realize. That when we get too much fat in our diet, that fat not only goes to the fat cells, it also goes to all the cells. And it forms oil slicks on the inside of all the cells, including those endothelial cells in the arteries. And it will form those oil slicks inside those cells. And it will cause cellular suffocation. Mm-hmm. It's like you got a sheet of saran wrap over your face. You can see right through it, but you cannot breathe. That's what's happening. All that fat gets underneath the insulin receptors and all the other receptors and starts to suffocate the cell from the inside. We thought diabetes was on the outside. We thought wrong. You and I learned about insulin resistance, and we were trying to jam insulin and metformin and all these other drugs, try to get those insulin receptors to work. They never had a problem to begin with. Turns out, never had a problem. The problem was on the inside, not the outside of the cell. This was a complete game changer. Complete game changer. So the biggest culprit is excess fat in the diet. Biggest culprit. There are many culprits. This is the biggest. I love what Dr. McDougall says. The fat you eat is the fat you wear. Ooh. In the United States, we rank number 1 in the world in fat consumption, just so you know. We absolutely do. It's extraordinary. And we have the data. Here's the data on what that major source of it. It's from, now we have butter, lard, and margarine, as you can see, since 1909 to 2009, the consumption of butter, lard, and margarine has actually decreased. The one that has increased has been vegetable oils. available easily in all your supermarkets. There's now an entire aisle just for vegetable oils. It's amazing. Fat is a problem, but there are different kinds of fats. So I'm not going to teach you biochemistry today, but I want to give you a little inkling about an understanding about fat. Here is a schematic diagrams of the molecular models of 4 different kinds of fats. 1, 2, 3, and 4. H stands for hydrogen atom, C stands for carbon atom, and O stands for oxygen atom. Now, here's what you want to know. I'm not going to teach biochemistry today, even though I love it. But this is the healthiest fat, and this is what humans can use. We can use this kind of fat. It's called an omega-3 fatty acid because the third carbon from the end, the methyl group, has the first carbon-carbon double bond. Now, here's why that's important. Did you take your chemistry? You remember it? I got a couple of nurses up here, so I have to quiz them. All right, so carbon has the potential of attaching to 4 other atoms. When there's a double bond, that's a high energy link. And that double bond can actually, with an enzyme, it can be split open so it can attach to something else and can be broken off. These double bonds are very important to our physiology. We have enzymes that can break those carbon-carbon double bonds. And therefore, we can create breaks here and therefore create what we call short-chain fatty acids. How many of you have heard of that before? Short-chain fatty acids, which are very important for our health. The omega-3 fatty acid, we can create 1, 2, 3 short-chain fatty acids. Amazing. We physiologically love those, and we need those for creating energy and for all kinds of processes in our body. This is omega-3 fatty acid. Wonderful. It's got 3 carbon-carbon double bonds. Fabulous. The next one up from that is a polyunsaturated fatty acid called linoleic acid, omega-6 fatty acid. And it's only got 2 carbon-carbon double bonds, and we can actually produce 2 short-chain fatty acids. That's it. This is an omega-9 fatty acid, or arachidonic acid, or monounsaturated fat. And it can only produce 2 shorter chain, but not short enough. It's actually pro-inflammatory. This is saturated fat. There are no carbon-carbon double bonds. None whatsoever. Now, you've seen the magazine articles from Time magazine, saturated fat is good for you. I've heard all kinds of people talk about that. The carnivores love saturated fat. It's amazing. Saturated fat has the same biological chemistry as these fat molecules. In case you didn't know, these are all produced from what? From what kind of fat? Crude oil, which comes from where? Dead dinosaurs. Go back. Saturated fat? Plastic, motor oil, diesel, and gasoline. How many of you think it's a good idea to add some plastic or motor oil to your oatmeal in the morning? Anybody? No, it's not healthy at all. We can't do anything with it except we take this fat and roll it up in our liver and create more cholesterol that we don't need. Isn't that interesting? So we don't need saturated fat at all. At all. Now,
Briefly mention what kind of foods are in each of those 4 categories, like on the bottom with
there's too many to list.
flaxseed, walnuts, and then.
I'm going to talk more about that.
Okay.
I'll get to that. I'll answer questions after. Okay. So here's the deal. Average American consumes 161 grams of fat per person per day. The average Olympic marathoner burns 125 grams of fat a day. Any problems with that? So your goal, if you're overweight and you need to be able to reduce your risk of disease, is get to about 20 grams of fat a day or less. Now, we all need the right amount of fat, if depending on our metabolism. There's such a thing called fat metabolism. Nobody talks about it, but I do. So fat metabolism. If you're an athlete, if you're active, you need more fat in your diet. You do. You absolutely do. So I'm going to go over the major sources of fat and other culprits as well. Number one on the list is going to be absolutely 100% pure fat. And those are all oils. It doesn't matter what kind. I don't care how virgin the extra virgin olive oil is. Okay? It's all 100% fat. And it's even worse when their foods are immersed in a fat jacuzzi. Okay? And they just load it all on. The research is clear when it comes to oils. It destroys the artery endothelial function. We have all kinds of research on that. I'm going to send you some videos. Causes all kinds of problems, increases your cholesterol, absolutely problematic. I'm going to send you more information on this. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, I love what he says. Now, he's a tall, powerful presence, 6'4", former Olympic gold medalist in 1960 on the rowing team. Yale University graduate, incredible physician. And he says, I'll invoke his spirit, no oil. He says it like that. Everybody got the message? That's direct from him. Another culprit is going to be all meat. All meats of any kind, doesn't matter. All meats are high in fat, including beef, pork, poultry, fish, and eggs, all of them, especially processed meats, especially those. They're very high in fat. In fact, Mayo and Harvard all agree that this is an erectile dysfunction starter kit, meat by day and impotence by night. Yes. And a lot of people say, well, eggs are good. I need eggs for my protein. Well, let's crack the egg myth. Cardiovascular disease increased by 19%, colon cancer nearly 500%, diabetes 68%, and prostate cancer by 81%. Not good. So the stats are rather significant when it comes to eggs. Dairy is also problematic. So all dairy, including milk, butter, cheese, yogurt, cottage cheese, and ice cream. And I used to love my ice cream, I got to tell you, so I know. Now, when you eat all of those, meat, dairy, and eggs, all of those have foreign proteins that the human body cannot process. Those foreign proteins are called carnitine, phenylcarnitine, choline, and betaine. Those chemicals, those compounds, we cannot use. So in order for us to do something with it, because the human body is so beautifully designed, it does not want to waste anything. So it processes everything. So these compounds, in order to process them, we have to have a specific species of bacteria in our gut that have to proliferate and multiply so that we can process these compounds. Those bacteria are called Bacteroides. There's a few others as well. But Bacteroides has the capacity to break these compounds down into this compound here, trimethylamine, which happens to be very toxic to the human body. Now, once it's in the bloodstream, it's going to get shuttled over to the liver, because one of the duties of the liver is to try to denature anything that's toxic. So one of the properties that we have in our body to denature anything that's toxic is to oxidize it. We add oxygen to it. When you put water on a cast iron skillet and you leave it there, what happens to the skillet? It will rust. So that's denaturing the iron. So the liver will do the same thing. It will oxidize the trimethylamine and convert it to trimethylamine oxide. However, this molecule, it's a little less toxic than this, but it still causes inflammation. And what we've shown in the research is that this compound, trimethylamine oxide, is responsible for 80% of the inflammatory reactions that cause heart attacks. 80%. 80%. Another culprit is going to be refined sugar. Looks like a drug, acts like a drug. Guess what? It is a drug. It absolutely is. It is loaded. And it causes all kinds of an inflammatory response. And the last thing your body's going to do with refined sugar is convert it into fat. Additional culprit are going to be all processed foods. I don't care how lean the cuisine is telling you that it is. It's all processed foods. So don't go there with processed foods. Another culprit's going to be alcohol. There is no safe level of alcohol. And I want to make this very clear to a lot of people. I know that it's very popular for a lot of people. It absolutely contributes to heart issues. Okay? It absolutely contributes to damaging the heart and abnormal heart rhythms. And this is from the American Heart Association as well. What we show in the data, what was that? Everybody. Everybody. And it doesn't matter whether it's red wine or white wine. It doesn't matter, any of that. Okay, the link between alcohol abuse, twofold increased risk of atrial fibrillation, 1.4-fold increase in heart attack, 2 to 2.3-fold increased risk of congestive heart failure. Another aspect of alcohol, a letter written by the American Medical Association to the Dietary Guidelines Committee for the United States. In that letter was a paragraph that alcohol is a known human carcinogen. There is no safe threshold for alcohol and cancer risk. There's an enzyme in our mouth. As soon as we touch alcohol, it will convert a portion of that to a very carcinogenic compound called acetaldehyde. Do you remember your organic chemistry? Do you remember your organic chemistry? Acetaldehyde is a very good commercial cleaner. It'll clean grease really well. All right, it is a toxic compound. In what we show as far as the equivalency, 1 bottle of wine is equivalent to 5 cigarettes for men and 10 cigarettes for women. That's the cancer equivalency. In addition, alcohol has been shown in the recent research that just came out just a couple of years ago that even 1 drink a day can damage the brain, and it is exponential with each additional drink. And this is based on over 36,000 brain scans. So we have the evidence. You don't hear it on CNN. Another major culprit for heart disease is going to be smoking. We know this. We've got lots of evidence. It causes all kinds of problems in a lot of different levels. So we have substantial information on this. If you know somebody that wants to quit smoking, 70% of smokers want to quit smoking. I recommend this book by Alan Carr. Alan Carr's Easy Way to Quit Smoking, Stop Smoking, and it works really well. The kissing cousin of caffeine is not sugar. The kissing cousin of caffeine, nicotine is caffeine. Both of those compounds are alkaloids. When it comes to heart disease, the European Cardiology Society did this research and shows that high energy drinks, consumption of energy drinks leads to significant increased risk of arrhythmia and up to a 500% increased risk of stroke. There is no safe level of caffeine either. So this is coffee, chocolate, matcha tea, black tea, green tea, and energy drinks, all included. Okay? So if you put all this together, you put all of the bad news together, eating high fat, okay, having high sugar, having alcohol, having caffeine, all of that, you put it all together. What time of the year is most susceptible for all of that to occur? What time of year is the holidays? Here's the data. We have tracked this for years. We know this. One of my friends is an emergency room physician. We know that we will have an increase in heart attacks over the holiday period. We know that because of lifestyle. We know that. It happens every single year. So now that I've thoroughly depressed you, okay, what promotes health? So it's very simple. And this is what lifestyle medicine's all about. We say, let's not give you a medication. You're still stuck in the sympathetic state. That won't do a darn thing. We have to change your central nervous system state and swing the pendulum from sympathetic to parasympathetic. That's what we need to be able to do. We need to change that because then your body starts to function and it starts to heal. The body is beautifully designed to heal itself. You know this. When you were a child and you went out and you played, how many of you ever got scraped up or cut or banged up? How many of you ever had that experience? Yeah. And you went crying to your mother and she put that darn mercurochrome on it and gave you a Band-Aid and said, leave it alone, don't touch it. And then a couple of days later, you were miraculously healed. Amazing. We're perfectly designed. And this is understanding that we have 4 fundamental human energies that keep us well: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual energies. We have to have all of these in balance, not just one or the other. So we have to attend to all of it. So being healthy, being able to thrive is having a balance of all these. In lifestyle, I focus on 8 areas. All of them are important. All of them, not just one. We can't just focus on one. I'm just going to do just exercise. That's all I'm going to do. But the rest of your life is out of balance? No, that won't work. It won't work. We need to make little adjustments. Now, I learned a long time ago, the secret to success is very simple. Study the successful people. Make sense? And do what they do that everybody else doesn't do. So who are the longest living groups of people on the face of the planet? Anybody know? The blue zones. Absolutely correct. It's interesting. The data shows the blue zones has over 80 per 10,000 people, 100,000 people, reach the age of 100. The rest of the world, it's only 20 per 100,000 reach the age of 100. That's a 400% difference. 400% difference. That's rather significant. Now, how many of you have seen this documentary, Live to 100 Years? If you have not seen it, please watch it. It's on Netflix. It's absolutely fabulous. 4-part series, 45 minutes each. Well worth your time. Invest your time. Now, here's what we show in the data. Let's start with food. Here's what we show. In Loma Linda, with the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, pay attention to this number. Remember the number I showed you before for the American population? What percent plants? 12%. In Loma Linda, 85% plants. Woohoo! The best health outcomes happen to be, however, in Okinawa. 97% plants. 97% plants. Neither of these population groups have any processed foods. No processed foods. Really remarkable. All of these scientific groups, not only the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, but all of these groups all agree today: eat more unrefined plant food. Eat more unrefined plant food. We don't eat enough. We just don't. The percentage of our diet needs to go up. And this means whole foods as opposed to processed foods, and plant foods as opposed to animal foods. So we want to drive the ratio up significantly. What does that look like? The number one food of all the blue zones is legumes. Did you know that? Legumes is the most common food of all the blue zones. Beans, peas, and lentils. By the way, you will never get bored. There's over 2,000 varieties. Okay? Another is whole grains, not processed grains, not flour. Whole grains. So millet, spelt, amaranth, quinoa, oats, wheat, barley, farro. There's a whole list. Tons. Then starchy vegetables are wonderful. I was talking to Abraham earlier about, he grew up in Peru. All right, so he's from Peru. So guess how many varieties of potatoes there are from the Incas? The Incas developed the potatoes. 4,000 varieties of potatoes. I had no idea. It's amazing. When in doubt, eat a potato. And if you don't believe me, go see Esther. Okay? And now vegetables, if you forgot what they look like, I thought I'd show you a picture. All right? This is the part of the market you want to go to. I just was at the co-op and I bought a whole bunch of vegetables like this. Fresh fruit, absolutely. Not processed fruit. We want fresh fruit. Cut them up, it's fine. But we want fresh fruit. For those of you who need a little fat in your diet, a good source of healthy fats will be nuts, seeds, and avocados. Those are healthy fats. If you have excess fat, then you don't want to be having very much of these. So you want to watch it. One avocado is 30 grams of fat. So it adds up very quickly. The benefits of this dietary approach are so many. There's so many benefits from being able to eat this way. And you will have no deficiencies. I promise you that I had to put it all on 2 slides. I couldn't put it just on 1. So there's so many benefits of eating this way. And there's research to back up every single item here. In summary, as far as the food that you eat can either be the safest and most powerful form of medicine or the slowest form of poison. You get to choose. You're an adult. But every time you eat or drink, you're either feeding disease or you're fighting it. Again, you're an adult, so you get to choose. It's up to you how you choose to treat your body. I think that this body is a divine temple that we've all been given responsibility for taking care of, and we need to do it really well. The Bible is filled with information about how to do that. Most of us don't pay attention. I don't claim to have domain and control over how this body was designed. I just understand the design. Everybody with me on that? If you have issues with the design, please take it up with the designer, not with me. Okay? So the thing is, we need to understand it and go along with the design. A little bit of clinical nutrition research, just to show you how this came about very briefly. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, and there's many others as well, but he had an interesting epiphany when he saw this interesting data that in Norway, during World War II, the rates of cardiovascular disease plummeted. So starting in 1939, the rates of cardiovascular disease, mortality, heart disease, dived down tremendously until 1945. Why did this happen?
The Nazis ate the animals.
So what happened is 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Norway. They took over and they confiscated all the animals to feed the German army. And they left the Norwegians with potatoes and vegetables, which they ate for 5.5 years, almost 6 years. And heart disease plummeted. And then the war ended, and the animals came back, and heart disease started to climb back up again. Fascinating. So Dr. Esselstyn said, what if we take people who are really sick with heart disease and put them on the Norwegian diet? What if we did that? Let's test it out. So in 1988, he took 24 patients who were told, get your affairs in order, prepare to die. They were that bad off. And he put them on the Norwegian diet. 18 followed the plan. 6 did not. The 6 who did not, they all died shortly thereafter. The 18, they lived for 20 years plus. Wow. So Dr. Esselstyn says is a 25-year warranty or 25,000 miles, whichever comes first. Now, what happened? This led to his book. But how many of you know that there are critics out there? There's people throwing rocks all the time. So some people threw rocks at Dr. Esselstyn and said it wasn't enough of a clinical study. You needed to do it for a defined period of time, and you need to have more people in it to make it really clinically significant. And Dr. Esselstyn is a very proud and righteous guy. And he said, fine, I'll do it. So in 2010, he does the second study. He takes 198 patients, 8 times as many. 177 were adherent to a plant-based diet, 21 were not adherent. And he published this in the Journal of Family Practice in 2014 after a 4-year follow-up. Now, we have data. We've shown. We know that when somebody has a cardiovascular event, they have a 2 out of 3 chance of having a repeat cardiovascular event within 4 years. We know that. So that's why it was a 4-year study.
Even with a stent.
Even with a stent, which is really interesting, isn't it? So the people who did not follow the plant-based diet, they had exactly 62%, 38% did not, but 62% did have a repeat cardiovascular event, as expected. Now, the group that followed the plant-based diet, here are the results after 4 years. One person went on a business trip to Chicago, had a greasy cheeseburger, and had angina the next day. The rest of the group, no problems. 99.4% effectiveness. No statin drug, no cardiovascular drug comes close to this effectiveness at all. That's the clinical research. Not only that, but Dr. Esselstyn had a colleague, a physician, a cardiologist, who was diagnosed with such bad heart disease. He had such bad heart disease, they said, we can't even do a bypass. It's too bad. It's messed up. Get your affairs in order, prepare to die. Dr. Esselstyn said, I had an alternative for you. Come into the study, follow the plan. So that's what he did. 32 months later, he had all of this beautiful blood supply, completely reversed his heart disease. Completely. Clinical study. So here's what we show. By being able to change the diet and your lifestyle, the inflammation pockets that are in the arteries can actually start to regress and go away. Wow. That's extraordinary, isn't it? So if that's all a plant-based diet can do, is reverse the number 1 killer of heart disease for men and women, shouldn't that be the default diet until proven otherwise? I think so. How about a cardiologist chiming in? Here's a cardiologist, Dr. Heather Schenkman. She said, in over 11 years of clinical practice as a cardiologist, not a single plant-based patient under my care has gone on to have another heart attack, need another stent, or need bypass surgery. 11 years. That's extraordinary. Now, some people, I still hear from time to time, they get attached. They say, but my protein, I need to have protein. How many of you have heard that argument before? Always, right? Okay. So we decided to put it to the test. We did a clinical study. This is an international clinical study. We put animal protein versus plant protein to the test. And we looked at the risk of cardiovascular disease in both of these groups. So this is a big study. This was internationally produced. And what we showed in California and France, and over 81,000 participants, that the animal-based meat protein diet had a 60% increase in cardiovascular disease risk, and the plant-based protein had a 40% decrease. Here's a graph. This, my friends, is a 100% swing in risk. That's more than statistically significant. In another study, clinical study, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine partnered up with the American Heart Association and said, let's put a plant-based diet head-to-head against the American Heart Association diet. American Heart Association diet, high protein, low fat. So we said, let's get a randomly controlled clinical study, 8-week randomized clinical trial to assess inflammation differences in post-angiography patients with coronary artery disease. The American Heart Association group, and this is baseline as far as their inflammation level, we measured what's called their C-reactive protein. That's a measure for inflammation. American Heart Association diet, not much better. But the plant-based diet, all 100% better, and it was a 32% lower high sensitivity C-reactive protein. So here's the slide. And by the way, because of this study, the American Heart Association changed the position. And now they recommend a plant-based diet as optimal. But it's not on the news. Because their donors include the Meat Association. So when you get your blood, here's a graphic to show you a list of all the things I recommend that you go get and you ask for when you get your blood drawn. Ask for all of these to help assess your inflammation and risk for heart disease and cancer. So this is a very good list for you. Don't worry, you're going to get all the slides. So you're going to get them all. So this is the list for you to all use. Okay, very quickly, some additional lifestyle medicine tips. Okay, here's one, another tip. I'm just going to go tips very quickly. Flax seeds, add flax seeds. We have shown that this has the highest concentration of omega-3 fatty acids. Make sure you grind them up right before you eat them. Best in the Vitamix with fluid. Best to be able to do that. Absolutely helps in terms of reducing your risk of cardiovascular disease. Another tip, for blood pressure, we've shown the effectiveness of hibiscus tea to be the equivalent as lisinopril, but no side effects. So very powerful to be able to use hibiscus tea. Fabulous. Just 1 cup a day or 1 cup with every meal would be amazing what you can do, especially if you have a plant-based diet. So hibiscus tea, fantastic. Another tip, we know that excess salt is problematic. So we want to be able to keep sodium and salt down to a level of 1,500 milligrams per day. If you eat processed food, that you break that level very easily. So make sure that you reduce your salt if you are a person with lots of salt in your diet. So make sure your goal is 1,500 milligrams per day. Another major tip, research on this, is water. Water, and it comes from the Adventist Health Study. 22,000 participants, and what we show is that 5 glasses of water, 8-ounce glasses of water, reduce the risk of stroke and heart attack by 50%. Say what? Yeah! 50% just by drinking more water. Drink most of your water first thing in the morning. That's the most ideal time to rehydrate first thing in the morning. So you want to get your water, very important. If you need to lose weight, drink water. Clinical study shows that a randomized 12-week clinical study, 2 weeks of water, 2 cups of water before each meal led to a 44% greater weight loss. Wow. That would put Jenny Craig, oh, they're already out of business. Weight Watchers, Nutrisystem, all out of business. So, right before, within 15 minutes? Within 15 minutes of your meal. Yep, or right before. You want water. So you want water, a minimum of 1 ounce per pound of body weight if you weigh 96 pounds, up to 1 gallon of water a day. So that's what you want to be able to shoot for. Don't do it all at once. Gradually increase. Gradually increase.
Meals, right? It's kind of a
It doesn't have to be with your meals. You can be.
It's not good to drink with your meals, I don't think.
That's absolutely not true. Yep.
I thought it disrupted digestion.
No, it doesn't.
Drinking while you're eating, drinking liquids while you're eating.
It does not disrupt digestion one bit. You have more than enough acid in your stomach. Yeah, you would have to drink 2 gallons of water to actually disrupt your digestion. But most people are not going to do that with their meals.
Drink enough between meals, which is better, I think. You're not thirsty while you're eating.
Correct. Yeah, but you can drink water with your meals. It's not a problem. Yeah, so here is what you should, here's my ticket for 96 ounces. Drink 2 full glasses of water first thing in the morning, 16 ounces. I drink 32, but drink a lot of water first thing in the morning. Hydrates your brain, absolutely. Drink a glass of water before and after each meal or during. Drink 2 glasses before a workout, 2 glasses after a workout, because you should be working out every day. Okay. Additionally, you can also eat your water. I'll answer questions when I get done. I promise. Okay? Eat your water. So you want to get plenty of foods that have lots of water in it. Check your pee. Check your pee. Check your pee. I can talk about urine all day. No. I won't do that. So it should be pale yellow to clear. So absolutely examine your urine. And don't worry about the social implications of drinking a lot of water. It's perfectly fine. It really is. It helps you to avoid other people's drama because you're too busy having to go to the bathroom. Okay, another tip is exercise. You've got to exercise. All of us need to exercise. It's one of the most key important things when it comes to cardiovascular health. The heart is a muscle and it needs to exercise. It needs to get stronger. In lifestyle medicine, we recommend 150 to 300 minutes of aerobic exercise every single week. Don't do it all at once. Spread it out. Spread it out. It's better to be consistent 5 to 6 days a week. So you want to do that. It also helps with your brain health, many things. Helps you to reduce your health risks, helps you to strengthen your heart, helps you to manage your chronic conditions, and it helps keep your arteries clear. Absolutely. So there's lots of benefits to exercise. Now, sleep is another very important factor. I talked about sleep the last time I was speaking here 4 weeks ago. So what we show in the research is that sleep apnea increases your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 300%. That's a recent study. I'm going to send it to you. It's shocking. I knew it was higher, but I didn't think it was that high. So it's rather alarming. Angina, heart attack, and stroke are associated with that. We know this from years of research, that even 1 hour of difference of sleep can make a profound difference in terms of cardiovascular disease risk. We just went through this. We had springing forward for daylight savings time. And what we show in the data is the next day, for years and years and years we've been seeing this, we have a 25% increase in heart attack the next day. And when we fall back, there's a big movement to just leave it alone and not be dealing with this. So it's really important to understand that. We show that sleep is so important for all aspects of cardiovascular disease. We need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep, so we need this. All aspects of heart disease and stroke, we need that all-cause mortality. So the most important tip, keep your bedroom for sleep and intimacy only, no TV. Don't stay up late. A regular schedule for your sleep is the most important thing, as consistently as you possibly can. If you take naps, keep it to 30 minutes or less. So that's real important. Another tip is to unwind and to de-stress. We have too much stress in our lives. Most of us do not put time in our schedule to relax. I cannot even begin to tell you. I ask so many people, what's your regular schedule? When do you schedule relaxation in your calendar? Most people don't have any relaxation scheduled in their calendar. It's really alarming. So we need to schedule that in. We need to unwind, and we see that in the blue zones. I'm going to send you a video from Dr. Andrew Huberman, who teaches a very powerful tool, which is the physiological sigh, which is a breathing technique to be able to reduce your stress so quickly by inhale deeply, and long exhale. That breathing technique will reduce your stress faster than anything we've seen. It's remarkable. So I'm going to send you the video. Check it out. And what we see, but if you do that for 10 minutes, it absolutely changes your brain chemistry. It does very quickly. So I've covered a lot, have I not? Yes. Whew. You made me work today. So I'm going to save the rest for later, but the thing is, there's just a few other slides. But I just want to let you know, all of this is to help you as far as your practices. In lifestyle medicine, do not think for a moment that you have to be perfect with all of this. It's not about that. It's about making progress. It's not about perfection at all. It's like basically taking a bicycle tire. How many of you have ever trued up a bicycle wheel? Anybody ever do that before? Okay, can you tighten one spoke and call it a day? No, you have to go all the way around and you have to adjust all the spokes. Your life is like a bicycle wheel, and you've got lots of spokes. And in order to be able to have a true wheel, that your wheel really is straight and really runs well, you have to make little adjustments everywhere. You can't just focus on one area and think that's going to work. You've got to be able to make all kinds of little bitty adjustments. You're better off with small incremental adjustments than trying to make a huge difference. I'm going to exercise 3 hours a day every day for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to change my diet for 2 weeks. No, that won't work. So make small incremental changes. So that's what you want to take on. Okay, questions? Anything at all? Yes, Dick.
Okay, let's assume that we don't all eat this diet that you're recommending. Say we're halfway there. Would you address the issue of vitamins? Is
Okay.
it better to take vitamins if my diet is not the greatest, but will vitamins help, including fish oil?
Okay, very good. I'll
What he
cover
said at the
that.
beginning is, if we don't do this whole diet that he was talking about,
Most
can
of us
you
won't be doing that.
at least address vitamins?
Yeah. So focus on the lifestyle, which is the big picture, which is what I focused on today. Make small changes. Vitamins can help. However, don't count on them being the cure-all. So what we recommend is plant-based supplements. So if you have plant-based supplements, that's going to be a much better way to supplement. There are only a few companies that provide plant-based supplements. I will send you a list of some things that I recommend, and many of the doctors recommend plant-based supplements. So in fact, there is a Christian company in El Dorado Hills that has a fabulous plant-based supplement. It's called Enerprime, Enerprime. And I know the owners personally, wonderful Christian families that run the whole business. And they started it because of their daughter who had alopecia, and they had no intention of creating a business. And they found all of these plants that actually helped her hair grow back. It was amazing. And then all the friends said, we want some. And then the next thing they knew, they had a business. So it's wonderful. They're very ethical. I've been taking it for over 25 years. So it's wonderful. So that's a plant-based supplement. So there's several others. Fish oil is not plant-based. So you can get omega-3 fatty acids from flax seeds and chia seeds optimally. Those are your two best. But there's many other sources. So you have mangoes and you have all kinds of things. Many of the seeds have lots of high levels of omega-3 fatty acids. Plenty of plants have omega-3 fatty acids. You don't need fish oil. And guess where the fish is getting it from? Their omega-3 fatty acids coming from the algae. So you want it from plants. And algae is a plant. So get it from plant-based sources.
I know we're over time, so let's just take 2 more questions, and
Sure.
then I know Ruben will stay behind if you have
I'll
some
stay.
additional questions.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Cindy and then here. Yeah.
I was wondering what you think about organic vegetables and fruits. I try to eat those, but I don't know if it makes a difference.
Very good. Excellent question, because we recommend organic as optimal. But what the research shows, very interestingly enough, if you don't have access to organic, you can still get traditional grown vegetables and fruit and do everything to try to minimize any contamination by washing them and do the best you can with it. But you're better off with fruit and vegetables. You're better off with that, even if it's traditional. But the best is going to be organic. So whenever possible, try to do organic. Now, some of the fruits and vegetables have the least amount of penetration of anything that they use to spray the chemicals on them. Like, for instance, bananas have a very thick skin. Some things have a very thick skin. So you can try to go about it that way. So that's the best way to go about it. I try to go organic every chance I get. Okay, question here.
Thinking about I thought about yogurt when it was up there, and I bought, I think it's cashew, what, you know, it's cashew something.
Yeah.
And the other seed.
Okay.
Coconut, cashew coconut.
Yeah.
Brand, and it's, you know, no sugar, nothing. It's just like those 3 ingredients.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about, well, is that compared to the other yogurt, which is cow's milk and sugar, is there something in yogurt or these other milk products and the, shall I say, fake milk products? You know, is there a difference, or am I fooling myself?
Okay, very good question. So traditional yogurt is made with dairy of cow's milk, and it's derived from cow's milk. And cow's milk has a very high amount of casein, which this is the protein, one of the major proteins in cow's milk, which we've shown in the research to be the most significant promoter of cancer we've ever seen. There's all kinds of other problems, but I'm just pointing out one. Okay, so you're much better off. If you want to have yogurt, you're much better off with a plant-based alternative. Much better off. Now, you still have to be aware of fat content if you're looking to be able to reduce the amount of fat in your diet. Some yogurts, and you have to be careful, you have to read the labels and you have to look and see how much fat is in that product. So you have to look and read the labels very, very carefully. So I always recommend that you read the ingredients, read the labels, and take a good hard look. And there's a lot of different options today. So if you do your where do you do your shopping at mostly? Rayleigh's? Okay, so if you look at Rayleigh's, you'll look and see they'll have a few options there. And you may want to check out some other places that have a few other options. So you can go and take a look. Sprouts has a lot of options. So if you head over to Sprouts sometime, check it out. They have a lot more options in terms of plant-based yogurts. Trader Joe's has some more too. But go to some of the other stores and see what they have. So shop around. Thank you for that question. Anybody else? Ted. So say that again.
Is there such a thing as plant-based ice cream? Because ice cream is worth dying for.
I get that. Plant-based ice cream. How many would love having plant-based ice cream on a regular basis? How many of you like to have that on a regular? Okay, it's so easy to make. It's wonderful. And yes, there is. So simple fix, really simple. How many of you buy bananas? How many of you freeze bananas on a regular basis? I do. Okay, so what you do is get a nice sized Tupperware and you get your ripe bananas, cut them up into chunks, put them in the Tupperware or container and put them in the freezer. And then when it's time for nice cream, what you do is you take out those bananas and you put in whatever frozen fruit you want to put in, whether it's cherries, blueberries, strawberries, whatever you want to do, put it in, put some of those in. I add some plant-based milk, anything you want, whether you rice milk, oat milk, cashew milk, oat milk, any kind of plant-based milk. And if you want it any sweeter, you could put a little bit of date syrup. You don't really need it, but that's usually enough. And you just blend it up in a Ninja or a Vitamix until you get the right consistency. Enjoy, guilt-free. You can do that. Yeah, you can do all kinds of things, but you can make it. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do a lot of sorbets at home with just organic frozen fruit and a little bit of dates.
There you go.
Yeah.
Works well.
Soak the dates for a few minutes in hot water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
works really well.
Sorbet in 2 minutes or less. Plant-based sorbet.
Okay. So
One more question?
die for nice cream instead.
Is there one more group question? And then, as Ruben said, he'll stick around and...
Christy, hold on, wait for the microphone.
Let me work my way over to you.
No, it's okay.
You said you could talk about pee all day, so we're going to talk about pee.
Okay, good.
So some of us wake up a lot at night. So here's the getting up, not getting good sleep, but yet drinking your water. So what
Right.
can we do?
Yeah, very good. So this is where we have to look at so this is a great question because a lot of people get up in the middle of the night to pee. If you're getting up more than one time a night, then you have to consider when you're drinking your water and how much you're drinking. And you have to look at the whole picture. So we have to look at everything in terms of how you're actually using your water in your body. If you're active, you're going to lose more water. So we lose water 4 different ways: urination, perspiration, defecation, and respiration. So those are the 4 ways that we lose water constantly. We generally lose on a daily basis anywhere from about 60 to 80 ounces of water a day. We're losing that. Now, if you're drinking water during the day, early in the morning especially, that's the better time to drink your water. If you're getting to a point where you say, oh my God, I haven't had water all day, and now you chug some water late in the day, chances are you're going to be up at night. So what we want to be able to do is get into the process of getting your body used to having water and processing the water earlier in the day. And that's a real important factor. And then try to do your exercise earlier in the day as well, because then you'll drink some water before and after. And then you can decrease the amount of water that you have when it comes to the evening. That way you're not staying up, going to the bathroom all night long. So hope that helps. Give that a shot. All right. You're welcome. You're welcome. Who else? Okay. Who can relate to Christy's question? Anybody? Okay. Yeah, a few people. All right.
If you
Very
have any
good.
more questions, Ruben, as he said,
I'm going to stay.
we'll stay.
Thank you all. Now, hold on. Before we go, if you have not been in one of the 2 seminars before, then we've asked that you fill out a yellow card so I can send you the follow-up email. If you did not get that, then please check in with Bobby and get that filled out so we can send you the follow-up email. I'll be sending that out soon, by tomorrow. It'll have all the slides, all the research, all kinds of videos, resource information, tons of recipes. How many of you like recipes? I'm going to send you about 3,000 to get started. Will that be enough? I'm going to send you all kinds of resources: how to cook without oil, how to prepare food without oil, how to eat out at restaurants in a healthy way. I'm going to send you all kinds of information. Okay, so be prepared. I love giving homework. I love giving homework.
And the next session is 2 weeks from tonight, April 23rd, and it is on Get Your Gut Healthy.
Get your gut healthy. Get your gut healthy. If you know anyone with irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, ileitis, diverticulosis, okay? They've got GERD. They've got all kinds of spasmodic colon. They've got colitis. They've got colon cancer. They've got any kind of intestinal issues. Please, please recommend that they come here. And we'll be here 2 weeks from today as well. So we'll be here. So spread the word, and we've got flyers. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. I will stay. I'm going to turn off my mic.
Okay, I got a question for you.
Okay, good.
The docs constantly tell me I've been a vegetarian for